What's up, man?
Hey,
Hey, we're back, bro.
we're back.
All right.
Technical difficulties ain't stopping us.
The audio is hopefully working. We're figuring this out. I say by mid-season we're gonna have this like bread and butter, dude.
Oh, I mean, we have what, like 20 entries? I think by entry 18, easy. Like they'll be great.
Oh yeah, 18, 19, and 20 are gonna sound
Oh yeah,
perfect.
the finale's gonna be beautiful, and then you're gonna move to Mars, and we're gonna have to figure that.
All right, my man. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the really fun, not at all historically inaccurate lies movie Pocahontas from the Disney Renaissance period.
The Disney Renaissance period.
Yeah. So I guess Disney kind of sucked before The Little Mermaid. I don't remember a time of Disney before The Little Mermaid, but it had some early hits, and then it kind of like Snow White, Cinderella, and then it was kind of bad. And then The Little Mermaid and that animation music combo style like brought it back. And so Pocahontas is in that like 15-year period of really good
Disney
movies.
Renaissance.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've
you can
already
like
learned
Wikipedia
something.
it and everything. Like it's an actual term.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So this is from the year 1995, which is the same as our last one that we recorded, Apollo 13. It was also from 1995.
Coincidence?
I think not. Anyways,
that was from The Incredibles.
right. Which is Disney? Or
Yeah.
is that-
Well, it's Pixar, but now it's
Disney,
now
Pixar.
it's Disney. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, anyways, but we keep talking about movies that are not what we're talking about. We're getting off subject, super straight out the gate.
We're so good at this.
Yeah, something like that. Okay,
Yeah.
So Pocahontas, I'm going to stop. I don't want to stop saying these numbers, but I don't want anyone to come back and be like, you're wrong on the box office, because you look at 3 different websites and they all say 3 different things. I have no idea which one's right. I'm trying my best, guys. Okay.
Hey, box office recording before the internet was a wasteland.
I
like
guess
who
so.
knows?
I guess so. Okay, so from my sources, it says Pocahontas earned $346 million at the box office, which puts it one behind Apollo 13. So Apollo 13 was the 3rd highest grossing of 1995. This is the 4th. If you looked it up on different websites, it says that this actually beat Apollo 13, and Apollo 13 was like number 6 for the year. I don't know.
That doesn't seem right somehow.
I don't know. Essentially, Toy Story, Batman, Apollo 13, Pocahontas, all big movies in 1995. That's all you need to know.
A very good year for movies.
Very good year. So this has received 2 Academy Awards for Best Musical and Best Original Song. The song was Colors of the Wind.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a banger. I don't know if it's Tarzan level, but it's a banger.
I think honestly most of the songs in that movie are a banger. Like,
yeah, not bad. They're not bad.
They get you through it.
I still get to the point in Disney movies where they start singing and I'm like,
yeah,
all right, let's get through this.
Yeah.
I'm just never been a musical fan in movies.
I think sometimes it fits better. Like I will say, like Pocahontas is the least organic, like with the movies, because you're like, why are the Powhatans singing about their life like by this river? Or at least like in Lion King, the meerkat and the warthog are already talking, so like your disbelief has already been suspended.
Right? So this is not viewed very well according to critics. It has a 6.7 on IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 54%, and audience score is 64%. That's not great.
No, to be fair though, I mean, I hadn't watched that movie in probably a decade. Like I actually sat down and watched it, and watching it as an adult, I'm used to really good voice acting in Disney movies, like really like I'm in it, like passionate voice acting. This does not have that.
It's funny that you say that, because that was my next point. Kyle, I feel like you knew this, and I feel like you set me up for it. Do you know who voices John Smith?
Yeah, Mel Gibson.
Gosh dang it, Kyle. Gosh dang it. Mel Gibson keeps popping up in every freaking episode we have.
Dude, the man's like Thanos and Patrick Mahomes. He's
everywhere.
Inevitable. Like he's inevitable.
What is happening? I did not know we were doing a Mel Gibson. Well, we have a Mel Gibson planned for this year, but
Christian Bale's in it too.
I know Christian Bale, which is maybe my favorite actor of all time. voices Thomas. In 1995, he had been. I think this predates American Psycho, so this is very early Christian Bale.
Yeah, this is like Newsies Christian Bale. Like he's probably like 20, I think, or 21. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably lost weight for this role though.
I think maybe.
All right. And then forgive me for my pronunciation here. Okay, so Irene Bedrad plays Pocahontas.
Right.
She's an Alaskan native, and okay, according to IMDb, this is what it says. I don't know what this means. Enrolled in the native village of Koyuk. I don't know what that means. Enrolled.
It just means that she is an officially listed member of that village.
Okay.
So, especially Inuit tribes and Canadian native tribes who have maintained more autonomy than like the lower 48 tribes have in terms of like where they live. They're registered by tribe, but then they will still have villages that exist. And so sometimes they're associated with the village because they haven't been pushed off of their land nearly as badly by white society. So they can
John
still trace.
Smith.
Yeah. So they can still trace their lineage often by the village they live in, not just the reservation or the tribe that they belong to. So.
Okay. She is a part of, her mother and father are a part of two different tribes. I'm not going to try to pronounce them. If you're interested, just look them up. Because, I don't want to butcher them and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So, anyways. All right. So we start off 1607. We sailed the open sea. We will all be rich and free. So we have been told by the Virginia Company. I like that the line at the end is like, we're going to make it. So we've been told. We're going to be rich. So they say. Like, it's implied straight out the gate, like, we're going off of what other people have already said about this land.
Yep.
Okay, so straight out the gate, is John Smith real?
Yeah, he's real. Everybody in this movie, with the exception of, I think, Governor Ratcliffe, who has like a name who is important, is real. So not Kocoum or Thomas, but Pocahontas, Powhatan, John Smith, like the big three, they're real people.
Okay, John Smith has to be the least inspired name I've ever heard in my life. Like, it's so generic, it's almost original.
Yeah.
All right, so Thomas goes overboard. John Smith dives in to save him. And then Governor Ratcliffe, villain at heart. Just his presence. You're just like, this guy's a bad guy.
He just oozes douchebag is what I was trying to say.
He has douche coming out of his pockets. He is overflowing with douche.
Like, I think you hear dickweed on the wind as he like opens the cabin door.
Anyways, so he kind of gives like this speech about, we're doing something so triumphant, and then whenever he returns to his cabin, he goes, I will need those peasants to dig my gold.
Oh yeah, well, he has a crick in his spine, remember? Like, that's part of that whole song about digging up gold.
So, and then John Smith plans to, and this is what he says, battle the savages. So Ratcliffe is going for gold, John Smith is going for a fight?
Yeah, apparently. So, like, in real life, he's just hired, right? Like, I can't speak to the internal intentions of John Smith in actual, like, 1607 when they arrive, but he's an explorer by trade. He's a mercenary soldier, is really what he does. So it's not impossible that he was like, yeah, I'll make money and I'll get to fight people and it'll be a fun time. So.
Right. Okay, and then we're introduced to the natives, and they speak, I'm going to say this wrong, Algonquian?
Close, Algonquin.
Algonquin. Oh, okay.
You were close. Yeah.
That wasn't like Troy levels of
No,
bad.
that wasn't offensively bad. Like, nobody's going to hear that and think, God, this white son of a bitch.
This guy, he knows how to read, right?
Right.
Algonquin. Okay. Is that the tribe that Pocahontas belongs to, or is a part of, or is it? Is that just a language?
Yeah, so this is going to require like just a scooch of historical explanation. So the Powhatan people are the tribe.
Powhatan people. Okay.
They're really a confederacy, like the Iroquois. So they're a bunch of smaller tribes that all report under the Great Powhatan, who is Pocahontas' father. But they're known as the Powhatan tribe. They speak Algonquin because they are an Algonquin people, which means that they are part of this massive group of various Native American tribes who all
Mm-hmm.
speak a version of the same language.
Okay.
And that language is Algonquin.
Algonquin. Okay. And what was the name of the tribe one more time?
The Powhatan.
Powhatan. Powhatan. Okay. All
So
right. I
even
will
their
forget
language,
that.
they would speak Powhatan, but it's
Powhatan.
a version of Algonquin. So think like
Oh.
Spain Spanish versus Mexico Spanish versus Honduras
Okay.
Spanish.
I
Like,
got you. Very interesting. Okay. Okay, so instantly when we meet Pocahontas, she's standing on basically the edge of this cliff, and her sister's like, "Hey, come down!" And she starts to walk down. She's like, "Nah, I'm gonna jump," and she
I'm gonna jump
jumps
this
off
200-foot cliff.
And I was like, "Oh, Pocahontas would have died." I was like, "Okay,
Oh
she's
yeah.
dead."
Oh, she's gone. Like she's dead.
Also, gonna pronounce this wrong. Cocoam? Is that
Cocoam, I think.
Cocoam? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, he's the warrior. He's well liked by everybody. He has
What a
asked
unit, man.
Right.
Like what an absolute unit of a human.
he's got the 2 handprints on his chest. Like,
That dude somehow pumps iron in 1607 Virginia. Like,
so he has asked for Pocahontas' hand in marriage, which means he asked her father. He says, "Hey, can I marry your daughter?"
He says,
he's like, "Yes."
I killed a lot of the Matanoacs, whatever tribe we're fighting. Can I marry your daughter? And Pat's like, yeah, yes, slugger, come on over.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yes, please.
We'll iron the details out over some wampum.
And then essentially Pocahontas is trying to decide what she wants to do with her life. And essentially she has there's this metaphor of that she's having a dream of this arrow on the ground that's spinning and it keeps pointing in a certain direction. And she asks Grandma Willow, who is a woman inside a tree,
Or a tree with a spirit who can talk to people. The jury's out. Like, we're not.
like, I understand that it's supposed to be like a representation of like an ancestor, and I don't know if she's like, is she supposed to be praying to the ancestor?
Yeah, it's a very on the nose interpretation of that. Like, all Native American tribes believe some level of nature speaks to you. Your ancestors manifest through nature speaking, this, that, and the other. None of them actually think that like willow trees grow faces and speak. But that's Disney's kid version to
Right.
show that like the native tribes are way more in tune with nature than these white jackasses sailing across the ocean.
So she says, spirits are all around you. If you listen, they will guide you. And then a bunch of white people show up.
Oh yeah,
So the English, they are English, right?
yeah,
Yes.
they're English.
Okay, English.
I mean, some of
arrive-
them are probably Scottish, but they're English.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the English arrive. They come ashore. Governor Ratcliffe says this is his last chance to prove himself to court. Who is this court? What is this court? He's
That's
referring to?
the royal court. So the
royal
court
court.
of King James II.
Okay,
The fancy rich assholes who like help run the country.
so they are basically financing this expedition, and
Yeah.
Ratcliffe has to prove that it is successful.
Yeah, he's more of like the King's Court doesn't finance it directly. The Virginia Company does, and that's like a colonization exploration colony that's privately owned, but it is endorsed by like the crown. And Ratcliffe probably put forth in the movie. He probably put forth the majority of the funding for this trip to happen to show that he is wealthy and rich and worthy
Gotcha.
of societal respect.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I put in here the man with the least inspired name in movie history meets Miko, which is the real star.
Oh
of
my
the
god,
film
dude.
here.
Miko and the hummingbird and Percy the dog are like the 3 actual main characters of this movie.
I know it's been done. It's been done over and over again. Like the goofy, like slapstick animal character. But man, does it still make me laugh every time.
When the hummingbird gets stuck in the canoe and then Miko like presses the water out of him and he shoots it. I lost my crap. Like
Bro, I just love Miko. Miko stealing all the dog's bones on the little spinning carousel of treats.
Also, the concept that this raccoon is just eating these bones like like they're bacon.
Okay, so John Smith makes a comment about what a strange looking fellow. I know this isn't really history, but are raccoons native to North America?
Yeah, there aren't raccoons that look like our raccoons anywhere else.
Okay, so like someone coming from Europe coming over, seeing a raccoon would be like, that's a weird looking creature. Like
Oh
I have
yeah,
not seen something like this before.
yeah. They don't have raccoon. They don't have turkeys that I know of.
Oh, interesting.
They don't have corn, which is another good, not yet, which is another like good point the movie makes. Especially not England, because so Spain has probably seen these things, but like the English haven't really been to the quote unquote New World except for a
Okay.
handful of times, and all of them fail. So they're basically going to a brand new place. Like none of them know any of this stuff.
So speaking of which, so there's a comment that Ratcliffe makes that when he proclaims the land Jamestown, and he says, "Let's not forget what the Spanish found when they came to the New World: gold." So were the Spanish before the English at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean Columbus reaches the Caribbean in 1492, right?
Right.
And he's financed by the King and Queen of Spain. So by the 1530s, Spain owns like the entire Caribbean, has conquered the Aztecs, has conquered the Inca. So like Brazil and Chile to Colorado almost all belong to Spain.
Wow.
And
Okay.
they've been there for 100 years, give or take, by the time Jamestown is even a thing.
That's interesting that like the colonization of North America. In my mind, I always think of like the East Coast and like establishing America, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah, and it's just because the English end up centuries later being the powerhouse colony. But
I gotcha.
at that point, they have this one town, and Spain has Florida, like what becomes Mexico City. They have South America, with the exception of Brazil, because that's Portuguese. They have Texas. They have modern day Arizona. They have modern day California. Like they have this massive empire that is already colonized and giving them gold out the ass.
Gotcha.
And the English have nothing.
So essentially, they're showing up expecting the same, but they're in the completely wrong area for this.
Yeah, I mean, like the Spanish kind of through coincidence land in super mineral heavy areas of the Western Hemisphere, and the English do not. Like Tidewater, Virginia doesn't have mineral wealth at all.
We're like, we got dirt and we got sand.
Yep, we've got good growing land, and we have a bunch of really angry Native Americans. Enjoy.
All right, so John Smith and Pocahontas meet. If I remember correctly, he's got his rifle aimed, and he sees Pocahontas.
His matchlock musket, which by the way, I don't know how that match stayed lit in the waterfall.
Right, as he walks through a waterfall.
Through.
I was like, buddy, I think you got a problem with your plan of action here.
Yeah,
so they meet. He sees Pocahontas, and instantly he's just infatuated with her. So in other words, if Pocahontas was ugly, the movie would have ended right there. Just bam, shot her, dead, move on.
And
like,
you know,
that
as far as cartoons go, she is fine. Like, I mean, credit where credit is due. Somebody had a Native American fantasy when they designed that character, like for sure.
I was meaning in real life, but okay.
Well, in real life, she's 12, so we'll get into
Oh,
that. Yeah, later.
Oh, that got even worse. I was
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
like, Kyle, you're taking this in the wrong direction. And I
Hey,
just,
if it makes you feel better, in real life, they're definitely not romantically connected. Like that's not a thing that happens.
Oh, okay.
So.
That does make me feel better. Okay.
Yeah, like that's not what happens. Like,
I was like, oh, this is getting so dark.
yeah, it's okay. John Smith was probably not a good dude, but pedophile, as far as we could tell, he was not. So
All
it's
right,
okay.
we draw the
Like,
line there. Murderer,
yeah,
okay.
like-
Pedophile, no.
Yeah, colonizer, fine. Dater of small children, not okay.
Not
Like,
okay. All right, I'm glad we established our moral values here on our podcast.
like, man, it's the 1600s, but it's not like the Dark Ages. Like, people
Right.
have rules.
Yeah.
They just only apply to white people.
All right. Anyways, so there's the first skirmish. The settlers and the natives see each other. It's kind of depicted like they essentially spook one another.
Yeah.
Like there's no conflict happening until like they recognize like, oh crap, there's natives right there, and then they start shooting for no reason. And
Well,
then
because Powhatan's like, we don't know why they're here. We don't know what they have. We don't know who or what they are. Like, don't pick a fight. And then the colonist, Ratcliffe, sees a scout and just shoots at it. It's kind of what, yeah.
Okay, so
At the scout, who's a person.
right at them.
Yeah.
Wait, Did you say them or
I
it?
said at it, and then I
Oh,
was like, wait a second, that's so offensive.
canceled.
At
You
the
done, son?
Yeah, he shoots at the scout. There you go.
I'm not editing that out either.
Oh, good.
This
That's
is it.
awesome. I
That's it.
love that. Here
We're
comes the
gonna.
white guilt.
We watched Selma already. Okay, we got plenty of white guilt.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Kotuam.
Hey, there it is.
Okay, that's right. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So he calls to unite the villages, and you mentioned how there's separate tribes, but they're all kind of united through the same language. So
Yeah.
but there's like different versions of it. Did this happen? Was there like a united front against the settlers at this time?
I think not at first, because like just the immediate tribe, led by the Great Powhatan, is big enough to stomp these settlers like bugs. At least
Okay.
in terms of like a number by number comparison. And in real life, the Pocahontas thing takes a minute. Like, it's not a couple days like in the movie. It's a month, and the settlers starve to death, and it's rough.
Gotcha.
But yeah, in the movie does that correctly. Like, if Powhatan needed a massive army, he is the dictator, so to speak, the elected dictator of a large confederacy of tribes that all can probably devote dozens, if not hundreds, of warriors to his cause. So he, within reason, could, and in his history, does consolidate like an army of hundreds of warriors.
Okay, so there is definitely a united. There's essentially two like small armies ready to go to war.
Like, you pick a fight with the Powhatan tribe, you've actually picked a fight with the Powhatan Confederacy. So
I
every
gotcha.
tribe within a couple days, canoe ride is going to show up.
Now, this is where our movie's plot comes to a screeching halt.
Oh, yeah.
This right here is essentially where we stay until the end of the movie. There is, will they, won't they, with two different stories going on here. There's the war essentially between the settlers and the natives. That was like, we're gonna have a battle. We're gonna go after one another. And there's also the John Smith Pocahontas love story that is developing. I love
It's where
that,
the love story becomes the main plot instead
Right.
of the secondary plot, where the movie like drops off a cliff in terms of like goodness of it.
maybe as two 20-something males who watch a lot of war movies and things like that.
You say that, but like Titanic's my favorite movie, and that's 2.5
Is it
hours
really?
of romance at one of them, and it's like 2.5 hours of romance and 30 minutes of ship sinking. Okay, so like Papa can watch a romantic movie.
Get
this
that
one is
boat
just
in the water.
bad. Maybe if a giant canoe was sinking, I'd be more entertained. I don't know.
I was laughing at a part where John Smith is just totally striking out with Pocahontas. He's like,
yeah.
"We can show you how to build decent houses," and
She's
he ends up
like-
calling her people savages, and she's like, "What do you mean decent houses? What do you mean being like?" building a society. What's wrong with how we are now? He's like, no, but this will be good. And she's like, wait, what are you trying to say here?
And he doesn't have any like actual like points. He's just like, white Europe is better, and she's like,
No, yeah.
like what?
And it just I think it's funny, but it also it's fairly well written in that sense of like, he does not understand how he's being offensive to her. And it's well written for the character of like, what do you mean? Like, we have these aren't houses. You live in tents, you have actual houses. And she's like, this is our way of living. There's nothing wrong with our way of living. And he's like, yes, there is, but he's not saying it deliberately.
Yeah, and the contrast is like the England that she sees is this tent city behind a fort that's torn up the land all around it, whereas she's like, we have long houses and pristine water and like we live in nature. Why would I want to go live in Dirt Central over there? And he's like, no, it's what sent us to Dirt Central is what we want to do.
So essentially, at this point, Pocahontas is just confused, and she sings about the importance of the lands and the things that inhabit
when
it.
he's looking for gold and she hands him corn and she's like that, and he's like, no, this, and she's like, we don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have that.
That's not a thing.
That's
here,
not here.
Sorry.
Which I thought was funny. Like, if you're in that situation, like, corn is more valuable than gold in the land of, because you can't eat gold.
No.
So he returns. Everybody knows something's up with him. He sneaks out in the middle of the night to go swoon her again. this time under Grandma Willow, and he's like, "There's a talking tree." Also,
Pocahontas, the tree is talking to me.
also, when they first meet, they're like communicating. He's like, "John Smith." He's like, "You don't understand a word I'm saying." And then like 2 minutes later, they're just talking normally. Like,
Yeah,
there's
like
no
Grandmother
language
Willow's
barrier.
voice is like, just listen to the spirits and they will guide you. And apparently the spirits speak English. Or
I guess so. I don't understand how she understands and speaks perfect English all of a sudden.
Or maybe John Smith just, I don't know, hits his head and wakes up speaking Algonquin. Like,
Whichever one. Honestly, they're equally as likely at this point.
yeah, and it's very confusing. And then the crazy thing is it applies to everybody. Like, it's not just Pocahontas and John Smith. Suddenly, everybody is speaking the same language.
Suddenly, there's no communication barrier. Definitely not a plot hole, but it's fine.
No, not at all, but it's okay.
Okay, so another question. When they discover there's no gold, why do they stay? Why in real life, why did they stay?
Yeah, so in real life, it's equal parts like they can see where they could make money and pride, because the English do not have a successful settlement before Jamestown. The closest they get is Roanoke in South Carolina before King James rules, so during the time of Queen Elizabeth, and it randomly like disappears over the course of a year, because you can't communicate back then because you have to send letters over the sea. And long story short, the guy in charge of the the guy in charge of Roanoke leaves, gets delayed 6 months longer than he thought it would be, comes back, and everybody's gone. Like, not dead, like gone.
Jamestown is the one where everybody disappeared and they have no idea what happened to them, right?
Roanoke's the one.
Roanoke, yeah, okay.
And then Jamestown is like 15 years after Roanoke, and so everybody assumes that they're going to fail anyway.
Okay.
So they were going for gold, but it was kind of like sure, we can try this again. We nominally think we own this land. We should probably have a town there.
Gotcha.
And they figure out that like they can farm tobacco and trade furs and like do all these things. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So this is when they start establishing like, we're gonna stay here and we're just gonna build the new world.
Yeah, it's
in
as
the
much
sense of what we think of the new world. You know.
In real life, it's like 50% projected profit, 50% English pride. Like, we got to make this one work or the Spanish are going to take over the entire continent. Like, it's kind of the thought.
Perfect. Basically, this escalation is leading to a battle, and at the same time, John Smith is going to he's trying to seal this newfound romance with a kiss. And gosh darn it, Kocoum is not happy about that.
Dude. And you know, in Kocoum's defense, like, he just watched one of his fellow warriors get wounded by a musket shot. Like, he's watching these people build a fort on their land. I mean, they don't view like land the same way that the Europeans do, but like their area, like their resources are being used by these demons. And then he sees one assaulting his fiance.
Yeah, can't say he'd,
like, I can't really fault, like, I don't think anybody who watches the movie objectively like can fault Kocoum for trying to cave this guy's head in with a rock,
Right. Okay, so Thomas sees this. He has been instructed to follow John Smith and go find him, and Thomas ends up shooting Kocoum to protect John. John gets taken hostage, essentially.
Because he takes the gun from Thomas. And I think it's important to note that, like, Thomas is a weenie throughout the movie. Like, he's the young guy who probably shouldn't be there, who John Smith protects. John Smith is a certified grade A badass because he dove off a ship in the middle of a storm to rescue Thomas. Right. And clearly is a soldier. And apparently Kocoum is like God's gift to warrior kind because he just shit stomps John Smith within like 20 seconds.
Yeah. He did not stand a chance.
Yeah.
Okay, so John Smith is taken hostage, and we are building to essentially Pocahontas' father is planning on executing John on top of this cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Right in front of the English settlers.
These white men are dangerous. We must not go near them.
There's actually a deleted scene where Pocahontas attempts to break John Smith out, break him free. Oh. And it doesn't work out. It's a failed attempt, but it was a deleted scene. That doesn't really add anything. The end result's the same, but
I think it maybe makes her more of a like action taker, though. I I think nobody in this movie seems to have any agency, with the exception of like Powhatan, and I think that's what kind of kills it at the end. Is you're like, why do all the side characters make all the choices?
Right.
Like, what?
So while these two armies are converging on this location, there's a song, Drums of War, being played. And I was thinking,
what a banger, man.
I was thinking while I was listening to this, I was like, you could not put this in a kid's movie today. The lyrics of it,
they're so good in terms of like, yeah, that's exactly what each side would probably be thinking about
Right.
the other, you know? Like,
so some of the lyrics are filthy, stinking savages, demons, devils, kill them. What are we waiting for? Destroy their evil race until there's not a trace left. We will sound the drums of war. And I was like, genocide. Okay, so genocide. that's what we're talking about here.
yeah, or the paleface is a demon. The only thing they care about at all is greed.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's both sides. I'm not saying it's
Oh
on
yeah,
one side,
but like, yeah, it's brutal. Like, they clearly hate each other. Like,
right. So our crescendo at the end of this, we have been building for like 45 minutes at this point to a battle between these two sides. John Smith is about to be executed on top of this cliff. The settlers have their rifles aimed, and Pocahontas jumps on top of John and is like, no, Dad, don't kill him. I love him.
I love him. And he's like, what is happening?
He's like, okay, I can't kill my daughter, so I guess everything's
like,
fine.
am I being punked right now? Am I on MTV? Is this, are we filming Jackass 5?
And then Radcliffe is like, no, I want people to die. Oh, I forgot to say that all the other settlers like just toss down their guns. They're like, okay, forget this. It's not worth it. And then Radcliffe
they also
like,
appear
no.
to be outnumbered like 7-1, so you know, there's that. But
Radcliffe shoots John.
Yeah. Well, he tries to shoot Powhatan, and John Smith is like, hey, this guy just saved my life. I should probably, be a straight up G and save his life, and just dives in front of this musket shot. Which is funny because Powhatan is such a massive human, as it turns out, that like John's entire torso covers like half of his, and it just so happens to be the right half.
It was the right half.
Like...
that rifle was extremely accurate for its time.
Oh yeah, that guy somehow. The big fat guy pulling off the sniper shot with the smooth bore muzzle loader.
And, the ending to this, I didn't even write down notes for it because it's seriously like John Smith is laying on the beach. They're like, we have to take him back. It would take so long. Like, wouldn't he die before? That's what I was thinking. I was like, wouldn't he be dead? They're like, we have to take him back. He will only survive if we take him back. We're not going to let you do your
England,
voodoo doctor stuff on him.
6 to 10 weeks from now.
I was like, there's no way he's surviving that trip. But anyways, Pocahontas, he asks Pocahontas to go with him, and she's like, nah, I'm going to stay here.
Nah, I'm good, bro.
And I was like, what was the point of all this?
Thanks for, saving my father's life and helping me stop this war, but I think I'm going to stay here. And he's like, yeah, okay.
Okay, so, and I asked you, all right, you can go ahead. I know. I had no idea who Pocahontas was.
I will say, when you messaged me and you were like, this movie's so inaccurate, where's Lewis and Clark? First I was like, oh, haha, very funny. And then you were serious. And I don't think I've been shook that badly in at least a year. I was like, bro. So long story short, Dustin thought that Pocahontas and Sacagawea are the same person.
I just forgot Sacagawea.
Well, you forgot that like
existed.
one of them existed. You forgot you like remembered what Sacagawea did, and you remembered Pocahontas' name, and so somehow those became the same woman.
Because I was like, okay, then what the heck did Pocahontas do? And you're like, she prevented a battle, and I was like, okay.
And you're like, why is there not a movie about Sacagawea? And I was like, that's an excellent question.
Isn't that more? I feel like that's more important. Like, I don't want to be rude, but
there 100% should be. But I mean, granted, she is a night at the museum, so I
guess that's something. That's another one we're gonna have to get to eventually.
Or not. Hear me out.
You don't want to?
Nah. There's no real history in that. There's just like
that's
Robin Williams and his amazing portrayal of Teddy Roosevelt.
So, anyways, long story short, I was like, okay, so Pocahontas didn't do a whole lot. This whole movie, not a whole lot happened. It was fine.
Yeah, I
But
mean, like, you're not like upset that you've. It's not like Napoleon, right? Like, you don't watch it and feel like you've been let down. Like, you
I
watch
don't.
it and you're like, okay,
That's
that's
yeah. I
that's a
didn't have
kids
high expectations.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what's funny is I remember having this on. I had it. My parents had it on VHS when I was a
Hmm.
very very young
Oh
child.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Never watched it. Never watched this. Watched Hercules and Mulan 18,000 times instead.
Dude, those are both
And
so good.
bro, they freaking are. But
Ugh.
anyways, I never
Ah.
saw this. So my
Yeah.
entire life, I thought, well, as far back as I can remember, when when you think of Pocahontas, I thought of leading an expedition to explore the new world. No idea
Nice.
that that's not what she did at all.
Nice. I
So,
love that.
anyways, I will admit that was my bad. Um,
That makes
anyways,
me so happy.
so do you have any historical inaccuracies that you would like to correct at this point?
Do I? So, first for starters, like it's I don't know, it's weird how accurate some of this movie is in the
Hmm.
sense that like Powhatan very much existed, John Smith existed. The general series of events, if I cut out like the middle of it, is not
The love
overly
story, though.
incorrect. Yeah, the biggest thing is that like in real life, Pocahontas is 12, or 13 or 11, somewhere in there. She's like a preteen.
Too
Um,
young.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Her name is not actually Pocahontas,
Wow.
because Pocahontas, well, Powhatan's name isn't really Powhatan. Like these are titles.
Okay.
So we know Powhatan is Powhatan, because that's what he's like written down as in the English records because that's what he was called. But
Okay.
that's his title. He is the Great Powhatan.
So
And
Powhatan is
so
like president.
yeah, or like
Okay.
king or dictator or whatever you want to call it.
Gotcha.
So Pocahontas' actual name is Matawaka,
Mm.
but she's referred to as Pocahontas because she is daughter of Powhatan. Is
Oh.
her title.
Okay.
So she would have introduced herself to these people, like, and the word that they probably would have picked out sounding like a name is Pocahontas, but she would have been telling them, I am the daughter of the great Powhatan, is kind of.
So don't mess with me.
Sure, yeah. And she, in real life, is captured by the English, not the other way around. So
Oh.
she does meet John Smith, and he um, likes her because she's a smart kid, and that she is very she understands very well the consequences of what is already happening
Mm-hmm.
between these two places. And so nobody's entirely sure what actually happened because Smith didn't record any of it in the moment. He wrote about it all when he got back to England.
Okay.
Um,
With a gunshot wound.
no, actually, what really happens, it's worse. What actually happens to him is that a barrel of gunpowder that they're transporting back to the ship that is going to take some people back to England to go get supplies blows up out of
Oh.
nowhere. And he somehow survives and gets sent back to England because the burn wounds are so severe that they actually are pretty sure he's going to die. And so they think they're sending him back to England to, like, be buried. But he
Wow.
survives. The crazy thing is that the story of Pocahontas and John Smith may or may not be complete fiction. Like,
Ooh.
it's possible that he made it up entirely, because she does meet him. They do know each other, and she does facilitate peace talks with him and her father. So she's important. The real historical significance of Pocahontas is that after John Smith is half blown to hell and goes back to England, this other guy named John Rolfe shows up in Jamestown, Virginia, to start a tobacco farm. And he meets the now 18, 19-year-old Pocahontas, and he's like in his mid 20s. So an acceptable age gap, especially
Okay.
by the time. And it's difficult to tell whether they actually fall in love because Pocahontas is captured by the settlers
Mm.
beforehand, and then she is eventually given back. And so by the time that she meets John Rolfe, she is like a very wizened, like war refugee almost, because there's already been lots and lots of conflict between Jamestown and the Powhatans by her marriage to John Rolfe in 1614.
So has she been captured this entire time?
No, she is let go, but
Okay.
so basically, here's what happens. So 1607, people arrive and found Jamestown.
Mm-hmm.
The Powhatan Wars start officially in 1609
Okay.
because they start with the capture of Pocahontas.
So that's kind of what starts the war between the settlers and
Yeah,
the
so
natives.
there's conflict and there's some skirmishes, and the settlers, despite what the movie shows, quickly figure out that matchlock muskets and guys who are not actual trained soldiers are no match for highly trained in Native American martial arts, basically.
Yeah.
Powhatan warriors armed with war bows and maces, all war
Gotcha.
hammers, who know the land. So they avoid conflict if at all possible. And John Smith, via Pocahontas, it appears, meets with Powhatan and is like, "There's only 100 of us. We'll stay out of your hair. Please don't kill us." And Powhatan, in the back of his mind, is like, "You're all going to starve to death in the winter anyway. Screw it." And
Yeah.
they almost do. More than half of them starve to death. And by 1609, it's kind of sort of a functional, like, we hate each other, but these guys aren't going anywhere. And they've figured out how to feed themselves. And then John Smith gets blown to hell and gets sent back to England. Somewhere after that, the powers that be in Jamestown are like, these savages need to get out of our way, and they capture Pocahontas to try to force Powhatan's hand.
Okay.
Powhatan responds with threatening the complete annihilation of everybody left in Jamestown because he's like, "You stupid assholes, I have 500 men. Like, I am the great
can't
Powhatan. You are only here because I thought the winter and the starvation would have killed your dumb selves way before this." So for a year, they kind of fight off and on, and Powhatan is finally like, "If you give me my daughter back, I will not stomp you like a bug." And they go, "Okay." So in 1610,
Deal.
they give Pocahontas back.
Okay.
Fast forward to 1614. Again, they're fighting off and on. War is a very, very like loose term at this point in colonial history because there's so few people in Jamestown itself that, you know, when we think of war, we think of organized armies, and war on the colonial frontier, especially in the 1600s, was a bunch of guys who were there semi against their will, armed with whatever weapons they could find against a Native American tribe that outnumbered them but didn't have the same concept of like a nihilistic warfare that Europeans do.
Okay.
Powhatan is like, if I show you my strength and I keep you trapped in Jamestown, that's good enough for me. Like, I don't want you here, but they don't believe in, like, most of the time, Native American tribes didn't believe in just annihilating one another. Because there's really not that many Native Americans. There's like, even before Columbus accidentally brings smallpox and typhoid fever, there's only like 150 million people split between North and South America, and 100 million of them live in South America. So you've got 50 million people, so like 1/7 of today's population spread out over the entire continental 48 states. You just leave. Like, if you piss somebody off too bad, if your tribe does, whoever survives the fight just leaves and goes somewhere else.
No single piece of land is like that valuable to.
No, not
to,
really. Like, they'll kill each other for sure, but
Right.
bigger dog wins the fight. Like,
Gotcha.
you just, if you pick a fight with Powhatan and you find out he's the leader of a confederacy, he kills half of you and the other half get the hell out. Like, he doesn't chase you down to like annihilate you. That is not how Europeans reach warfare, however.
Right.
But long ran short, by 1614, Pocahontas meets John Rolfe, who is a guy who moves to Virginia to grow tobacco. And whether or not she actually loves him is unknown, but she does seem to like him quite a bit, and he loves her.
Okay.
He falls in love with her, and she sees an opportunity to make what she thinks is a permanent peace because she is still Pocahontas. She is still the daughter of the great Powhatan, and the diplomatic power that comes with that is far greater than we understand it now in our patriarchal society. Like, it was like a feudal marriage. If she marries John Rolfe and he's a leader of Jamestown, that will keep the peace. So she does. And they have a son, and for 2 years they live in Virginia, and things are good. Her marriage crafts an 8-year peace between Jamestown and her father, which is awesome. But then eventually Pocahontas goes to London for what is supposed to be a temporary trip, but temporary in a time when it took 2 months to cross the Atlantic is a very loose term. They're in London for the better part of a year, or England, and she doesn't have enough immunities to survive in a heavily populated environment, and she catches Something pneumonia, smallpox, tuberculosis, dysentery, some ungodly disease that her body cannot fight, and she
Mm-hmm.
dies before they even leave England again in March of 1617 at 21 years old ish.
Oh, dang.
She dies. Rolf eventually marries somebody else, but his personal memoirs state that he evidently, regardless of how she felt about him, he very much did love this woman. He never emotionally fully recovers from it. He kind of fades into obscurity, except his plantation and his family help keep Virginia successful over the next decades. And the death of Pocahontas and the continued encroachment on Powhatan's land when he is explicitly told these white sons of bitches no like 100 times starts what are called either the Anglo-Powhatan Wars or the Tidewater Wars because they occur in Tidewater, Virginia. They take place over like 30 or 40 years. Long story short, it ends with the English managing to keep a hold of what they have, and there's enough casualties and enough disease that ravage the Powhatan warriors that it's the beginning of the end for their confederacy. Powhatan eventually dies from old age, and he doesn't make it through the war. His brother, Open Kankanaw, who is far more of a warrior than Powhatan was, like mindset-wise, and far less tolerant of these white settlers, just unleashes unholy hell on Jamestown, Virginia. It's something like 15 or 20% of the native warriors and like 25% of the settlers of Jamestown die in the Tidewater Wars. It's insane. It's like 1 out of 4 available people to fight get killed. And eventually, the English don't go away. The Powhatan Confederacy is exhausted. They don't believe in total war anyway, like I said, and they just back off. And then that's kind of the beginning of the English, I don't know, infestation of Virginia that eventually becomes what we know as the 13 colonies, a century and some change later.
So, essentially, not what happened in the Pocahontas movie.
Not at all.
All right, so we started this. Let's keep it going. I'm going to get the timer. We're going to do a 60-second review. I started last time. I'll have you start this time. You ready?
Oh, boy. Okay.
Set. Go.
Okay, 60-second review. My enjoyment factor of this movie, 6.5 out of 10. The music's awesome. The voice acting's pretty subpar, especially because Hercules, Hunchback of Notre Dame, all the other Disney movies in this era are like really good. Historically, 4, 5, somewhere in there. Like for the reasons I've already described to you, it's not atrocious, but it's not good.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that was really quick for you, Kyle. Okay, so I thought like the first half of this movie, like I said earlier, it built well, and I thought it was going pretty well. I liked the characters. I liked how Pocahontas was kind of portrayed as someone who's adventurous, yet she doesn't let. I liked how she was like independent, you know, and I know that's kind of cliche, but anyways, and then about halfway through the movie, I think it just kind of falls off. It turns into a love story that I'm not a big fan of, and if I would give it a number, I'd say probably 6. All right, that was right at a minute. I had to cut off my end, but that's okay. All right.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think the movie either needed to be 30 minutes shorter and just be like an hour-long movie that like cranked things along really quickly and kept the suspense, or it needed to be like 15 minutes longer and have another conflict between Jamestown and Powhatan, and that probably would have fixed like the plot problem because you're like, okay, like all right.
I think it would have been much more interesting if Pocahontas was captured instead of John Smith.
Yeah, that, well, you know, since that's what actually
would have
happened.
Made, that, and it would have made more sense. Like you could have easily written it as Thomas accidentally helps Ratcliffe capture Pocahontas. They take her back. John Smith's not happy.
I think
the natives are about to attack, and you know you could have done more with it. It's just the stakes would have been higher.
If you'd have made it even less historically accurate than it already is, and like made what happens with John Rolfe and Pocahontas in real life like the fabricated story of John Smith, there's your movie. There you go.
All right.
But whatever, Disney. I mean, you had like 9 bangers in one okay movie in a 10-year period. I don't think we can really fault you for that.
No. All right, well, you snuck another Mel Gibson movie in. Gosh,
I had totally forgotten that he was the voice actor until I heard him speak, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's right, he's the voice actor."
So I was like, I know his voice, but I didn't look it up until after I'd finished the movie, and I was like, "Gosh, dang it, Kyle!"
The craziest Mel Gibson in here is like Mel Gibson's like I don't know like colonial explorer voice is the same. Like, just go, like, pull up a clip from The Patriot and close your eyes, and, like, it's John Smith. Like, not
John
just
Smith.
because it's Mel Gibson's voice, but, like, his intonation, the way he delivers sentences.
He's like about this close enough, same time period, same
he has
area.
like a, I don't know, like a I have a musket in my hand voice. Like,
This is my I've eaten beans every meal for 18 days straight.
yeah. Please, somebody give me an apple.
All right. Okay, so next week we're taking it way back. This was 1995. We're moving back to 1927.
Woo.
First ever Academy Award Best Picture. The only silent film to be a Best Picture. We're going back to Wings. I love this movie.
Really
It blew me away the first time I watched it. I think it's going to be very interesting because we're going to have not only the history portrayed in the movie, but it's also, we can talk about the history of the movie itself.
Yeah, I mean, the movie itself is a piece of history. Like,
it is.
Yeah.
It is 97 years old now. That is insane.
As much as I don't like it, Gone with the Wind is a similar, like, concept in the sense that, like, the movie is historical in the sense that, like, they act like it's based on history, but then, like, the filming of the movie is a piece of history. It's
a part of history itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're going next week. Hopefully everything turned out better with the audio this week than the last time we were trying to record.
If you're not hearing this till April, that would be why.
That's why. All right, so we'll be back 1 week from today.
Woo!
We'll hear you all there.
Yeah. Sure. Oh my god. I quit.
All right, see y'all.